Hello, my name is Mike Hodgson. I'm the CEO of Serabi Gold, and I'm joining you today on May the 10th from the One-to-One Mining Conference here in the city. And glad to be with you.
Mike, thanks for joining. It's been a while since we spoke. One-to-One conference back in London. The sun is shining. Are investors showing up?
Yes, it's pretty full, and we're in day 2 of our 2-day conference, and we've had pretty much a full card both days. So we're our last one's at 5 o'clock tonight. So I've got a window to speak to you, so great.
Good man. Well, I appreciate making time for us. That's very kind. Look, like I say, it's been a while since we spoke. A few things that have gone on and you've been doing in the background, but I think that the big news of the day is a JV, effectively, with Vale. They're coming into your Polito project. Tell us a little bit about that deal.
Well, as you know, I alluded to this when I last saw you here, actually in November, and it's great. I mean, look, I see Vale as they're the real deal. I mean, they're a company of huge stature in the world, in Brazil particularly. They know Brazil inside out. Massive endorsement for our address, our exploration potential, and what the company is doing in Brazil and the way we're conducting our business. So wonderful news. It's the lawyers got hold of it, and it took a bit of time to get the agreement over the line after the technical people had solved everything within sort of a few days. But anyway, it has to be like that, unfortunately. So it's taken a bit of time, but great to get it done. And the good thing to do, the important thing to note is we started the drilling. The drilling started about 3 weeks ago. We've got 2 rigs turning already. 3rd rig's on its way. We're drilling we've got about 6 properties in the Polito tenement. What we really like about this alliance, this marriage, is they're interested in base metal potential. They're not particularly interested in gold. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be drilling, looking for base metal, copper most predominantly. We're obviously not interested in that so much. We're interested in the gold. So I think the sort of the advantage of this deal is there's going to be no conflict. They're looking for big things. We're obviously looking for small and medium-sized gold things. So there's not going to be a conflict. So they're going to focus 15,000 meters. We're going to drill in 9 months. We are furiously going to be exploring over the next sort of 9 months. Huge news flow. It's going to be great. We're going to generate a lot of obviously targets, hopefully along the way. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
And of course, you've actually already started drilling there, haven't you?
We have. We've got 2 rigs turning. We've drilled our first 2 holes. Very nice visual results already. And the great thing about this deal is with Vale, they are going to reimburse spend or sunk costs already on this program, so we won't be out of pocket.
Okay, so no conflict. They're not kind of stealing your dinner further down the line. They're after copper. So you are at a conference. There's teas and coffees in the background. Apologies, folks. They're after kind of base metals, copper predominantly, and to get porphyries costs a lot of money. So in terms of bringing their balance sheet to bear, and obviously their endorsement of the project to bear, that's all good news. But in terms of the deal specifics, it's not just $5 million going in the ground. They've got some options available to them as well. What are they?
Yeah, so basically this first stage, phase 1, they're just going to basically fund an exploration program, $5 million over the next 9 months. That's it. When they get to that point, they'll make a proceed or no proceed decision to go to phase 2 or not. That's when the JV alliance really gets formed. And at that point, they will then drill to take it through to PFS stage, and they'll be funding us a minimum of $2 million per year to do that over a period of a minimum of 2 years up to 5 years. And then if they want to go to phase 3, which is take it to bankable feasibility study, they pay an additional payment to us of $10 million. And then phase 4 is basically they acquire the rest of the property for a further payment and obviously a residual NSR or 1.5% NPV of the project. I don't want to go to huge depth about it. People can read that in the press release. But basically, it's what it's going to do. It's going to generate great news flow and targets for us in the first year. And then after that, it's cash coming into the company, which is going to fund our exploration going forward for obviously a lot of I like to use the expression, it's like throwing fish back into the sea. I mean, a lot of what they're going to generate is going to be meaningful for us, but maybe not so meaningful for them because they're after huge things. And maybe Matilda will be huge. And therefore, if that does happen, okay, they earn in and we get paid handsomely for it.
Okay, and let me second this point about, because I think I've seen already a little bit of feedback about people worried about what you're giving away up front while the markets are difficult as they have been, right? Vale can come in for 75% for $5 million and they can go up to 90% with an additional $5 million plus or 1.5 of the NPV of the project, right? So, and it's the project, not the not all of the assets of the company, just that Polito project. You then have the option of selling the remaining 10% to them for $10 million and a 1.5% net smelter royalty. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's your option.
Yes.
You can either hold that last 10%
Yes.
or flip it if you want to.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's really important. Really, really important for people to understand. Okay, so Vale, great endorsement. How long was that diligence process of theirs? Because there's something at the end I want to talk to you about, which is where I think this kind of endorsement element is really, really important. So how long was the DD?
Well, it's, I guess, basically from the beginning of the year until now. They've been, over the next 3 months, they're the first quarter, essentially. So, they've had their legal counsel look at us as a company, look at the deal, what Serabi's doing, our business in Brazil. So, yes, so they've scrutinized us. They've had a good look at us.
Okay. Well, do you know what? I was going to leave this to the end, but I'm going to ask you now. Okay, there was an article in the Guardian came out, was less than complimentary about mining generally, as I think this writer tends to be, but specifically aimed at you, quoted you as well. I think it was you. It was Mr. Hodge. I don't know who that is.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, that shows how profound it was. Right?
Well, like I say, I think I just want to fact check a few things with you, if you don't mind, because he'd effectively say that you are legally mining in the Amazon rainforest without approvals. So let's start with that big one. That's a big deal. So what do you make of that statement?
Well, okay.
It's a family show, by the way. Keep it.
It's it's the mining world faces this all the time. You've got unregulated press out there, and therefore, you can try to reason with these people. You can speak to them. You can actually point out, we did have discussions with them. Our legal counsel did. We put them right on a lot of their accusations and allegations, and yet they still just chose to proceed with an opinion which is wrong. Of course we're operating within the law. Of course we've got legal license. Of course we're not operating in the indigenous land. It's absurd, their accusations, and yet they still print them. Do you think someone like Vale would actually invest in a company that are doing those things? Of course they would.
I don't. That's why I'm asking you. Why you think they have grounds to write something like that? Was it just a case of this was written before the Vale deal was announced and they didn't appreciate that, or are there other motives afoot? Or clearly they have genuine concerns, and I think writers like this have a right to hold companies accountable. But if you have gone through the processes, then you're doing things the right way. So. I can sort of understand why people write these articles, but at the same time, if you have been through the process, you probably feel that you've gone on the right side of the law, right side of ethics, and the right side of, your local social license to actually mine. So how do you feel about all of that?
Well, it is a fair point. They have got the rights, but as I say, reasonable people would obviously listen to the explanations and yes, I've got no problem with people writing a balanced and fair article, and again picked up by a broadsheet newspaper in this country. But as I said, we had several discussions with them, and yet they continue to write story. I mean, goodness gracious, the headline was Serabi Gold with a picture of an artisanal garimpo next to it. I mean, it's just appalling manufacturing of news that isn't there. I mean, Serabi Gold is a modern professional organisation with underground mines. So they put a great big picture of a disgusting garimpo alongside our name. I mean, it's just scandalous, really.
What's a garimpo for those that don't know?
An artisanal mine.
Okay.
Which is basically, that's the type of mining all over the world that gives mining a bad name, because these guys. Now, the interesting point about this article is, after it was written, we're in the middle, as you know, of permitting Koringa. We've got a valid trial mining license, and we're operating underneath that. What we do have is at the moment we've completed an indigenous study, which was done at the request of the public prosecutor. So we've followed all of the requirements of the public prosecutor, and we're doing that at the moment. Having completed the indigenous study, inside that indigenous study, the key component of that is for us to actually have a positive consultation with the indigenous communities that are more than 10 kilometers from the Koringa project, and that's therefore that's the legal buffer that's in existence. And without any prompting, those indigenous communities have been very supportive of us. They wrote a letter once that Unearthed article came out, and the letter said that they said that the Unearthed article claimed they'd had discussions with the indigenous communities. The indigenous community said they most definitely have not, and the article said by the indigenous communities wrote, companies like Serabi are behaving in a responsible manner. We want the Serabi project to go forward. What we're angry about is the lack of action by the Brazilian government, state governments, to do anything about the illegal logging and the garimpeiros, the artisanal miners, and it is they that are destroying the environment and making life difficult for the indigenous communities. So he said, if anybody wants to have a go at gold mining in Brazil, why aren't such articles being written about those guys? This is an attempt by, I don't really want to get too much into this, but this is an attempt by a left-wing group to brand us as an artisanal miner causing damage in the environment. Very easy to do, and we're a soft target. And yes, we can't get into a big war of words with these people. I've just said, serious investors investing in Serabi know that we're bound by legal councils in Brazil, legal counsel in the UK, we're permitted, and that's all been proof checked, and they would look at, any serious investor would check the facts and realise that's what we are. If people want to believe what unregulated stories on the internet come out, and it's people like, the editor of The Guardian want to pick up on it, well, I can't help that.
Okay, fair enough. I don't want to get too into it. Like I say, I don't want it to be a kind of war of words, but I think for me, seeing Vale come on board, they're clearly a Brazilian company, know how to operate in Brazil, and they're going to pick their partners carefully.
Totally.
Right. Okay. Let's stick with some of the good news components. It's something you mentioned there. You're operating on a trial license and waiting for the full license. I mean, have you any sense of timing on that, and what will the full license allow you to do that you're not able to do at the moment?
Okay. Well, we talked in the past about it's kind of a bit of an odd situation. I'm sitting here trying to explain this to investors here, and they're asking the question. Okay, so you're waiting for the Koringa operation or trial mine today. We have a license which allows us to actually mine up to 50,000 tons of mineral ore, let's say not gold, ore, so tons of ore, out of that mine per year. Now, that allows us to produce a reasonable amount, not go to full production, nowhere near full production. That's another thing that was said in that article, that we're producing the full production, which is nonsense. So it's a small amount of production, and it's experimental. So basically, we're evaluating the Koringa deposit, and as you know, over the last sort of 6-12 months while we've been into the ore body, it's allowed us to actually do test work on the ore sorting at Koringa, which we've since found to be fantastic, and it's changed our mindset about what we're going to do at Koringa. We're already trucking high-grade ore from Koringa to the Polito plants where we've actually got capacity. The reason we're doing that is because I've explained before, road improvements, paved road now. Trucking costs have come right down because the road's paved down. There's an oversupply of trucks. All there is good things. And now, of course, we're looking at, we don't really see the need as we had in the BFS of Koringa 3 years ago and the PEA of 3 years ago too. We had the business plan at Koringa was actually to open up the mine to be a 40,000 ounce producer with a process plant at Koringa, which is going to cost back then was like about $25 million, probably with post-COVID inflation. We're probably talking about $35 million. Since that time, we've got underground. We've seen the amenability to ore sorting. We've seen the road improvements, etc., and the trucking costs coming right down to 1 gram. Ore sorting will allow us to actually move the grade from 7 grams coming out the mine to 15 grams on the trucks. You can truck an awful lot of tonnage for $35 million. So we're sitting here today, rather bizarrely, waiting for the various mining agencies to give us our installation license to build the process plant we're now not going to build, to get the authorization to build the process plant we're now not going to build, and they're studying the environmental impact of a plant and tailings, which we're now not going to have in the for the Koringa project. So all that, when we get that installation license approved, it'll just basically be, I would say, it's almost like a passport to raising money. The big difference for us will mean we can change the mining rate. We can scale up the mining. We can move from 50,000 tons per annum, or let's say 8 to 10,000 ounces per annum, to 30,000 ounces per annum, and get the business up to where we need it to be. So the great thing is, not building a plant, much less capital, but it'll basically move our mining license, our trial mining license, to a full mining license. That's the real game.
Okay, so that's good news. And what I'm trying to get from you is, like, when we first started talking, I think you went on a kind of sort of stellar run of it. People's expectations of you after the acquisition of Koringa was high, right? Then you had I'm going to go 2.5 pretty difficult years, shall we say, 2 years, certainly very difficult years in terms of COVID, then supply chain issues, then inflationary pressures, you and everyone else, right? So you ended the year last year, in a good place, like 59 million revenue, and I think we talked about 1 million post-tax loss of, so like no big shakes. But the all-in sustaining costs, which are the sort of numbers that give people an indication of how things are going, $1,470. You've got to drive those ounces up this year. I mean, your Q1 numbers have come out, which I think you might be worth going over. Your costs have come up, are out there, and what I guess the market's looking for is like some sense of, is there growth? Are you going to produce more ounces? Is it going to be cheaper? And what are the things that you've done in terms in the 2 years that you've been able to do to kind of set you up for success for either later this year or next year?
Okay. Well, I did fail to answer one of your questions on the last question, but it is in that question you just asked me. When are we going to get? Okay. When are we going to get this license? Well, we anticipate we're going to get it sometime during Q3. That's okay. Our hope. What will that allow us to do? Well, the Koringa is turning out to be a terrific ore body. The payability of it is amazing. We have guidance this year of 35,000 ounces, which is going to be about 5,000 coming out of Koringa and 30 coming out of Polito. The growth is Koringa. I mean, I think Polito is in a steady state of production. It can produce 30,000 ounces for a long time. We've got a new resource update coming out of Koringa in late June, early July this year. We did a lot of underground meters last year in Polito. We really put some put some meat back on the bone there. We'd mined a lot out of Polito during the pandemic. So we're going to see a healthy increase on resource numbers there at Polito, which will give borrowers, lenders, investors a lot of confidence on the mine plans at Polito. But at Koringa, obviously subject to us getting that LI and therefore increasing our mining rate at Koringa. Koringa next year, I don't see why we can't be targeting 15 to 20,000 ounces, which means that the group are going to be well into the 40s, mid-40s. That's what I'm aiming for. And the year after, we'll be in the high 50s. So, and what we're doing here, our new business plan, without building the process plants at Koringa, but will not impact on the mining rate and the ounces we produce. We are going to basically fill our process plants up with quality ounces. And by that, I mean we'll have an ore sorter at Polito, we'll have an ore sorter at Koringa, and we're going to get more ounces through that process plant by sending higher quality material to the plant. It's a plant-constrained operation, 500 tons per day. So if you treat it with 500 tons at, say, 12 grams or 11 grams at 500 at 7, your ounces go up. We can squeeze that plant up to 60,000 ounces. And these ounces will be ounces with a good margin. You talked about, Q1 this year, much improved on any quarter in 2022. We did over 8,000 ounces and our AISC came down to the 1400s. And obviously we are enjoying a much better gold price. We've been generating, I suppose, the last 2 months, something like about $500,000 free cash flow. And we're funding Koringa out of that, albeit at a modest rate, but we're funding Koringa out of that, So, that's really important. If gold goes back to 1,600 and the real goes back below 5, okay, it's going to be really tough. But, I don't think that's going to happen. So we are enjoying a moment. Our AISC is low because in the COVID years, we only did 32,000 ounces. If you go back before COVID, we were doing 40,000 ounces and the AISC was very acceptable. That's where we're going back to, and then we're going to surpass that and therefore people are going to see our AISC coming down to a, we have high fixed costs because we're a camp. So we have to feed everybody. We actually have to accommodate everybody. We're never going to be a super cheap producer in that sense, but the quality of our ounces means we can have a good margin. So it's all about spreading your G&A over more ounces, and that's what Koringa brings.
Okay, well, tell me about the balance sheet, because obviously, gold price over $2,000 has been like that for a couple of months now. I know that's not long, but it's better than nothing. If gold can continue to sustain those sorts of prices, producers will start to benefit. I notice your cash available on hand is up to 13 million, but you've also done things like you've got a loan payable now-ish. You've gone and secured a loan with Santander for about $5 million. How do you manage your increased cash flows? Obviously, you told us about how you hope to increase the grade going through the mill and therefore the ounces coming out. I mean, it's a real balancing act, all of this, and you're still not quite there in terms of having a tidy balance sheet. So what are you doing about it?
Okay, well, we took on a credit line last year with Itaú Bank for $5 million, which we never touched. It was like just an insurance policy. So that gets paid off at the end of May this month, which will take our cash, which is currently sitting about 13 down to 14, down to about 9. That's it. So we're then sitting with 9. If prices stay where they are today, we're probably going to be funding Koringa at the moment while we're in this period of, let's say, waiting for the permits, etc. We can hold our own and not really run our cash down, but we will have the $5 million to pay in June 2024. That said, as we ramp up our ounces towards the end of this year and going into next year, we're pretty confident we can pay that cash flow. Out of cash flow, we can actually settle that debt. But I would say the moment we get the LI, we will hope that the value agreement that we've just done, the results that are going to come flowing from that, the new resource update we're going to get at Polito in, let's say, June, July, and then finally getting the permit at Koringa, we're going to see hopefully a pretty decent price recovery. And then with that LI, obviously we'll be going out to find some funding to accelerate that expansion of Koringa, and that's underground development. That's the real critical point. Putting in the ore sorter, putting in the crushing plant. We've already got the crushing plant, the ore sorter we've got on deposit. They're not big numbers, really. What we need to do is accelerate the underground development, and because at the moment we're doing it in a modest way out of our cash flow. But obviously to get to the 60,000 ounces in 3 years or 2.5 years' time, we need to accelerate that. And that's what that would come with the LI. A funding option to help accelerate that. But we can't be raising equity at these prices, really. We want to see some improvement in our share price. I'm sure the news flow, well, as I can see, the news flow comes, which is good and strong.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of kind of good news items in there, and like I say, I guess it's very, very welcome. The share price is telling me that it has been very, very welcome, not just down to Vale, but also the Q1 numbers have helped as well, and a very positive gold environment for producers. Do you think it's that kind of steady delivery of some of the moving parts which we've been talking about for a while that's going to get things going again for you? Or do you need something bigger? We've talked in the past about, what you'd like to do on the exploration front. I know you've been funding Koringa out of your own cash flow, which wasn't on the to-do list, but you've been doing it. Do you need to step that up a bit? Do you think the market would forgive you at the moment if you did go and raise capital to expand the exploration component, or is it just not on the cards yet?
To be honest, Matt, with the amount of activity we're now doing with Vale's money, we couldn't cope with anything more. We're absolutely we've got 3 rigs going. I mean, that's absolutely, our exploration company, part of the company, is absolutely flat out. So, no, that's all being done by Vale, funded by Vale. It's great, and the majority of those results are going to be our results. So, no, exploration-wise, no. No, our value adder is going to be developing Koringa and accelerating that development. At the moment, probably staying as we are, it's more than enough. But as I say, as soon as we get our LI in our pocket, we'll be looking to accelerate Koringa expansion and underground development, really. And the ore sorter and the crushing plant, we'd like to obviously get that and have that up and running mid next year. That'll be our objective.